Hello dear friends. In this video we will talk about April, a month that is extremely dynamic and unusual, a month in which very cruel energies will alternate with the most spiritual and refined energies. This is the month that introduces us to the eclipse season, the first of this year. Namely, the first solar eclipse will happen at the end of April, and the second, challenging one, total lunar eclipse, will be on May 15 to 16. Let's talk a bit about the activity of the Sun, the Moon, other planets, and important aspects. I will say that briefly at the beginning. New Moon is on April the 1st. It's in Aries. And then again, we have another new moon that will happen on the April the 30th. It will be in Taurus, which will also be the partial solar eclipse. And then full moon will happen on April 16th. It will be in Libra sign. From the important transits, I would mention that the Sun is until the 20th in Aries, and then it's in Taurus. Mercury is in Aries until the 11th. Then in Taurus, Venus is until the 5th in Aquarius, then in Pisces. And Mars is in Aquarius until the 15th, and after that in Pisces. All of the big planets are direct still, and that's why we have this dynamic. Let's mention other important aspects. On the 1st and the 2nd of April, the Sun and Mercury will be in conjunction with Chiron, which will symbolize healing, some sort of healing. And as any new moon actually signifies the energy for the next 6 months, this will be something about it, healing. And this is happening, this conjunction, of course, around the new moon that we mentioned. On the 5th of April, Saturn and Mars are in conjunction. And we will talk more about this very, very hard conjunction here in this video. Then between the 8th and the 10th, Mercury makes a good aspect with Mars and challenging aspect with Pluto. And in those days, the communication becomes more complicated, so be careful about that. Then from April 9 to 17, Neptune and Jupiter are in conjunction in Pisces at the 23rd and 24th degree. And this is an aspect that speaks of the power of the cosmic waters. And also in this video, I will speak about this in more details. Then on the 12th of April, the Sun will make the sextile with Saturn, which is the aspect that always reveals secrets. Then on the April 17, when Mercury will be in Taurus, it will make sextile with Venus, which will be in Pisces. And this is slow developing energy, but is very harmonious. It's good for relationship, for trade, and for agreements. So use this day if you need to make any agreement. Then April 18th, Venus and Mercury. On April 18th, Venus and Mercury have good aspect to Uranus, but at the same time the Sun makes square to Pluto. So the theme of the eclipse will actually open here. We will work out the theme of the eclipse already around the 18th. And these aspects will affect finances and world economy. In some slow portion, but later that will be the subject of the eclipses further in the month and in May. On the 24th and 27th, Mercury makes good aspects to Jupiter and Neptune, helping us to rationally understand what is happening in cosmic waters. If we need to understand that rationally, it's not that necessarily. There are things that we can't explain rationally. But okay, this is aspect that can bring this rational explanation for something. On the 27th, Venus is in conjunction with Neptune, and on the 30th, Venus is in conjunction with Jupiter, which are especially good days. And around those days, we will have the second new moon. So all planets that will gather together between the 27th and the 30th will be in strong position. So this is Venus, Neptune, and Jupiter in Pisces. And of course, this is fantastic aspect for artists, spiritual people, for healers. However, this extremely refined energy has nothing to do with our harsh material reality in which we live, or majority of people live. So it can also bring actually great lies, illusions, and deceptions, depend on our level of consciousness of every individual. The first new moon that will happen in Aries, let's talk now about that in details, indicates the awakening of spring, but also the awakening of the fighting spirit, as we did not have enough of that. So on the day of the new moon, Mercury and Chiron are together with the sun and the moon. And as we have already said, Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer. And this archetype will be emphasized now and in the next 6 months through Aries sign. So actually there is some healing moment through Aries. The battle is there because we need to heal in a way. Chiron is known in mythology for the wound he had and could not heal, but thanks to that wound he discovered many secrets that exist in nature and in the universe. His knowledge is unique as it is the result of the crisis and the pain he experienced himself. So we will all learn a lot during April and probably in the next 6 months about the laws that we are not taught in the school, but which are crucial for understanding of life. And that knowledge will appear to us out of the need to preserve ourselves, that is Aries, self-protection. So that's what we need to learn how to do. Also, constellations of the planets in Aries and Pisces in April remind us that there is a spiritual war going on in the world. So far, we know that this is the informational, biochemical, psychological war, and now any other war against humanity. And we know that that intensified since 2020. But this is in the first place a spiritual war, in which, of course, spiritual warriors are fighting. And you can understand that as you wish, that there are such warriors in the etheric sphere, but that there are perhaps also on the earth. Both will be true. The new moon in Aries will mark the beginning of some healing processes or acquisition of very, very useful knowledge for everyone, but especially for people who have planets from the 5th to the 15th of Aries and perhaps Libra sign. These people may feel that they have a mission and that they are here to save others, or maybe of them will struggle to save themselves only. I made a video about Chiron in Aries back in 2018. You will find it on YouTube, and I recommend this video very much because Chiron is somehow on the side in astrology, as it is asteroid, it's not the planet, but it has a really important meaning for us in today's time. The conjunction of Saturn and Mars with Venus nearby, but still Venus will not be part of this conjunction, happens on April the 5th. But we have been preparing for it since the end of March, and we will feel it for the first 10 days of April at least. It is part of the events around the new moon that we are explaining here, and it is the second significant fight constellation after the meeting of Mars, Pluto, and Venus also, which happened on March the 3rd, and which we talk about in the March video. So this is now going to be the second fight constellation or conjunction. Any encounter between Mars and Saturn is potentially dangerous because it brings some kind of sadistic energy. Now they meet in Aquarius, which is a sign of people and the masses in general. They're meeting at the 22nd degree, which is a good degree now, in principle, because it gives great perseverance and endurance. So that's why now this transit is this degree is quite okay. By the way, Saturn is leading in this conjunction, so the fight will be controlled. Although exhausted, somehow will slow down. Somehow by the end will slow down. However, Saturn and Mars are making square to Rahu, which is the north lunar node, which means that the battlefield is transferred to the economy, finances, and biological life on Earth, which are the most dominant subjects of the Taurus Scorpio eclipse this year and the next year. Let us remind ourselves that Mars and Saturn met in Aquarius in 1992, then in that time in March at the 13th degree, which is the degree of decay, collapse, of bridges and things like that. And that really happened. Because at that time war broke out in the former Yugoslavia, hyperinflation appeared in some parts of the world, and there was a great crisis after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Especially that year, great pressure was put on South Slavic people, so mainly Southeast Europe, but also east of Europe. And those people, in some parts, were brought into the situation of killing and destroying each other. They were brought into that situation. This was not their desire. It's very, very important to understand how these things function. And now something similar is happening, like in 1992, although not in the same form. Unfortunately, mutual hatred can grow now, as in 92, if we do not consciously stop it. Why is the European Union now destroying itself, like America, with sanctions imposed on the third party? Because it is the part of the project. You will remember we have said many times in the videos that part of the globalist agenda is the creation of a world government that controls man or biorobot completely and gives him only GMO food and so on. You know, this is the symbolism of Pluto and the last degrees of Capricorn. And how do we get there to have such a government? Well, through chaos. So when the chaos is so great that an ordinary person only feels fear of diseases, hunger, war, and climate change, then they come, you know, and then they offer the solution of everything, while the upset ordinary man is happy because somebody is saving him. This scenario is very well known. I hope you know about this. This is not some fiction, you know. Many people spoke about this in the last years. So namely, it was planned that this agenda in English I would say, would be realized by the year 2030. But now information has appeared to the public that the group from Davos in Switzerland, this is the group which is organizing everything. I can't say everything in details, so I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So this group has decided to implement the plan by 2025. I have to admit that it was not clear for me before why, astrologically speaking, would be that year 2030 that important, because it did not look important. For example, the year 2032 could be very important. because then will happen the conjunction of Saturn and Uranus at the last degrees of Gemini, which will end the old cycle of those two planets that began in the year 1988. And from 2032, those two planets would start their new 44-year cycle. And we now, in those years, in 2021 and 2022, we live the last critical phase of this cycle that started before this cycle from the 1988 that will last in 2032. Now we live its critical phase. And this always brings great importance for economic and social changes on the global level. Always has to do something with that. But now on the background of other things that are happening, of course. So now it's more dramatic than maybe in some years before. However, now the bandits from Switzerland have really changed, if bandits from Switzerland have really changed the deadline for implementing their plan to the year 2025, everything starts to make more sense. Because we spoke in many of my videos that the year 2025-26 will be crucial for the end of this that is going on now in the world. So why would they change the plan? Well, they are probably in a hurry. Or I don't know what can be the reason. Let's guess that. So now will be the biggest pressure on people, unfortunately, and in the fall, it is the last square of Uranus and Saturn. Next year will not be any other square. And I say it is important that we now know what is happening and that we help each other. This is the crucial thing here. However, helping people has its challenges also. For example, many have now received refugees from different countries, from Ukraine also, but one can quickly find out what is this all about, and it may happen that the peoples who have received them turn against them because they can understand that this is part of the lie. So I will not go into details here with this. I can't. That could be a problem for my channel and for this video. But what I want to say, let's just get rid of any hatred for the beginning. Any hatred. Ordinary people are not to blame for anything. And if we want to live together on this planet, the only thing we can do is realize who is our true enemy and who pulls all of the strings and makes us idiots. If we are guilty of something, it is that we do not know what is happening. We allow ourselves to be educated by the black box, that people are watching constantly. And thus we are dominated by the technocrats. So this is our problem, that we don't know, only that. The energy of Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, which is active from April 9 to April 17, appears to be now the completely opposite in quality and meaning from the conjunction of Saturn and Mars. And the conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune, we will feel a couple of weeks before and a couple of weeks after. But it's exact between the 9th and the 17th of April. I talked a lot about this already. Among other things, it means the desire for salvation, and also it means the salvation itself. Listen please to my video Walking on Water. This is the video for the year 2022. And somewhere in the middle of the video, I mentioned the meaning of this conjunction. But I already have put a short clip from that video. It is also on YouTube. The name is Conjunction, I think. Conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune. And in those two videos, I spoke about historical parallels, and I said many things about the conjunction that I will not repeat here. Here I will say some other things. Although this is energy that is extremely fortunate at first glance, because it offers endless growth. It is actually the symbol of endless. There are no borders in place in time with this conjunction, It's fantastic in that point. It means also spiritual awakening, turning to spiritual values, possible positive use of computer technology for healing, healing by music and vibrations and the like. This is this conjunction. But with all other constellations that are there, we can of course use it in a positive or in a negative way. It is first important to understand that now in April will start new 12-year cycle of Jupiter and Neptune, and will start in Pisces, where both of those planets are in very, very high position. This is a very unique transit. And in April, what we will experience through the sign of Pisces will follow us in the next 12 to 13 years. So we are actually creating some sort of a pattern that will follow us, be with us next 12 to 13 years. Basically, with Jupiter now in Pisces, everything can be more or less similar as it was when Neptune was in Pisces alone, but it can be intensified. Why? Well, because Jupiter supports the growth and the expansion of everything it touches. And also I have a video about Neptune in Pisces. Check that video, please. Neptune in Pisces. Neptune will be in Pisces from 2011 until 2026, and this is going to be the key moment of this transit. But Neptune in Pisces is also a very unique transit, because we have it for the first time until the last part of the 19th century. So this is really the most important month for our spiritual growth and, if you want, for our salvation. Jupiter will not intensify the collective emotions. Not. I said not. No, Jupiter will intensify now the collective emotions that flourish already with Neptune in Pisces. The previous year was marked by a massive release of emotions at numerous demonstrations around the world against governments and against lockdowns and everything, which is typical energy for Neptune in Pisces. However, public attention, or hypnosis, if you will, is now focused on another field since March. So the mass hysteria lasts, but the topic is different. Instead of uniting and supporting each other in the fight against false governments and politicians, we now allow them to play the game even more. Even more. You will remember that I once talked about the fact that the symbol of the transit of Neptune through the sign of Pisces is the tarot card named Tower. When I'm talking about tarot, I only think of mythological tarot because I do not know any other. That card means the end, the demolition of the tower. And according to all symbols we have now, we live in the end of civilization. More precisely, the end of civilization of lies. Now lies are increasingly appearing in the light of the day, and that is why manipulation through the black box or the TV and other media is intensifying. In its decadent form, this failed civilization cannot bring good to the common man, when a biochemical war is waged, all other values, or old values, let's say, are destroyed, human organs are trafficked, cannibalistic restaurants are spread around the world, especially in America, children are trafficked, refugees are created, and so on and so on. I don't want to list all of the horrors. I hope you know what is happening. But at the same time, the desire for salvation and the creation of paradise on earth, as people say, golden age, is growing stronger and stronger. Of course, this is the opposite of that horror that we are going through. And it is quite certain that in the next 12 years, we'll be longing for salvation and the creation of a more spiritual world. That will be definitely our inexhaustible topic, if we survive, of course. There will be a lot of fantasy in that, but for sure this is the main topic. Creation of more spiritual world. We will learn in the years to come, by grace or by force, that we need to help each other and that the salvation of the world depends on our level of consciousness of each individual and on our ability to make contact with the divine. Behind the hypnosis that is currently being created and which will be done further and again until people themselves say it's enough, behind this there is actually something else. It is someone's need to destroy humanity and to rule the whole world, completely similar as it was in the Second World War. The only thing that changed is now that by using modern technology, they are changing the atmosphere and biological life on Earth. The conjunction of Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, in its positive manifestation, represents cosmic divine power. It will be seen during this month and during next 12-year cycle who has cosmic power, who is supported by the universe. This is a combination in which the element of water is very strong. So we are talking about collective feelings, but we are also talking here about cosmic, not earthly waters. And yes, of course, if the flood comes, it will be biblical flood, something like that, of course. And if it will happen, this is going to be marked with this combination in Pisces. Of course, this is not the flood on Earth, although it can be in some form also materialized on Earth. But this flood is actually the flood that marks the end of civilization and old time. In the civilization of lies, whose decay we are watching before our eyes now, one world government should rule, we said, of course, but with the help of the World Health Org. I can't say everything. I guess you know what I mean. And pay attention to that. This is the reason why there is this pandemic law, which is already implemented in many countries, especially now in the European Union where I live and I see what is happening. And this is also symbolism of Neptune in Pisces, because if Neptune in Pisces is the strongest planet now on the sky, that means that everything is happening through the sign of Pisces, or let's say some sort of healing, quote, and of course they have to rule through this energy. I'm sorry that I can say the details clearly, but I really guess that you understand what I'm talking about. Furthermore, there is another thing which is about the masses and movement of masses, and this is fascism. And fascism is growing in the world, also especially in Europe, as an inseparable part of this mass hysteria. And we said in one of my videos what is fascism. So let's now remind ourselves. Fascism actively encourages the masses to support the elitistic system of government based on its over-conviction, so that the injustice is shown as the truth. Since it is so, totalitarianism is introduced without resistance, and freedom of speech is forbidden in many countries in European Union. I don't know about other countries, I have to say. There are things like that in many countries, I know, but I don't know if it's that harsh as it is now in European Union. Maybe not in all countries of the European Union the same, but in many it is so. Since Jupiter amplifies everything it touches, it can theoretically amplify everything we have mentioned. So it can make the situation worse, of course, because the universe does not force anyone to integrate a certain energy in a positive and only in a positive way. It can also be in a negative way. So what is important is that it makes sense for future existence and that it gives some lesson. So people can learn from mistakes, behaving childishly and irresponsibly, and also can do things wisely, consciously, and responsibly. Of course, both of these will affect karma and spiritual heritage of all of us. Although we say that this combination in Pisces has nothing to do with earthly waters, it is a good to remind ourselves that water on our earth is polluted and we don't have enough rain. This is also part of the story of the water. And this is very important for geoengineering, to stop the rain, to dry the soil, and in every possible way to limit the natural growth of plants on the ground. And this is what they're doing for more than 70 years already. Even when it's rainy, the rain dries the earth. It's such kind of a rain. So I've heard even that in some countries they pay for the rain. You can check this information if you can. I guess it's a very interesting one for many people. Furthermore, there are codes in water. Codes are in water in our body and in nature. Water is the element that keeps codes from the past. And now we are exactly on the border of survival because someone is trying to destroy all codes and to keep only robotic beings on the earth. Let's pay attention to that. So because of all of those things, I suggest that we all actively pray and chant mantras during April, which will help us establish a connection with the divine and save life on earth. Many still think that it's naive when people pray or dance or sing to God, but that is the basic way to establish a connection with the forces that are above man. In ancient cultures, hymns were sung to God, life was glorified, and man thanked that for everything that was given to him. So everyone can pray in his own way, but I can suggest some prayer for you. So we can all repeat. Thank you, God, for everything. Thank you. Thank you, sun, for the shining. Thank you, God, for the rain. Thank you, earth, that you feed us. Thank you. May life flourish on earth. You can maybe make some your prayer that you will repeat, but it can be also something as I suggested. You will see. And now let's say a few words about the eclipses that await us. The second new moon is popularly called Black Moon. And this one will happen on the April 30th in the sign of Taurus. And we said it is going to be first partial sun eclipse. This eclipse will especially affect people who have planets or ascendant or some significant horoscope points around the 10th degree of Taurus, possibly also in Scorpio. Eclipse is usually considered to have the greatest impact on the areas in the world where it is visible. Since this eclipse is partial, it will not have too much of an impact, but still will have some impact. It will be visible in Latin America and Antarctica. The horoscope of this new moon is quite harmonious, and it's under the protection of stellium in Pisces. This is Venus, Jupiter in Neptune. We mentioned already at the beginning Venus, 27th and 30th of April, that they are important days. So they are part of this, actually, of this second new moon. And it is quite certain that it brings happiness to all of those on whose side is the cosmic power. And it will be very helpful for those who live in accordance with spiritual values, which actually supports them. So it is going like this. You live in accord with this, and this is giving you power. For others who make towers in the sand, it brings disappointment and fall with the first tide. It is so. So this eclipse will be followed by the total lunar eclipse that will take place between the May 15 and the 16. Will be visible on almost the entire American continent, in most of Europe, Africa, and Antarctica. And I will talk about that in my next video for the month of the May. This eclipse will change the economic situation in the world, which we already see clearly. Also, let me remind you that in my video Walking on Water, we said that during the conjunction of Neptune and Jupiter, any economic reform is doomed, and that it was regularly accompanied by the inflation or some sort of deep crisis of all values. It is simply so. So, my dear people, may God help us. Let us be very honest and not be fooled by wrong reforms that are coming from the black box. Truth resonates with the universe, not lies. Only a pure soul that accepts everything and is grateful for everything can win this war. And so let every step of yours, every word of yours, and every thought of yours be a prayer and gratitude to God during April. And that's all for now, what I wanted to tell you for this month. You will also find all of the links and contacts, recommended videos, and many other things below this video on YouTube. I'm on Telegram. You will find me there under the name Symbolic Thinking, T meets it, but just remember Symbolic Thinking. It's good to be in touch in different places, not just here through YouTube. I also start putting more videos on Odyssey. Odyssey is a little bit complicated for long videos, so just some of my videos are there, but I hope I will put more of them. And in every bigger censorship happen, you will find me later on my web page is symbolicthinking.net. And if the censorship becomes bigger on YouTube, I will put my videos maybe there on my website. So feel free also to schedule personal consultations with me. Just take into account that I do personal development, astrological psychology, and spiritual astrology. I'm not that interested in classical astrology. I don't predict much because everything depends on our level of consciousness. So there is no reason to predict anything. If you like the video, like it, sign up for my channel, and share this video. And thank you very, very much for that in advance. I wish you good luck and see you soon.